Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed.
Hear me?
You are listening to the Tales of Music and Film podcast. My name is Christian Taylor, and thank you for clicking on today's episode. And I just want to say, first of all, that I hope all of you listening, I hope you all had a fantastic Christmas. I know I did, and it was a great one. I mean, every Christmas is fun. Christmas is one of my favorite holidays in the world, and I've never had one bad Christmas in my life. So I just wanted to say, I hope you guys all had an amazing Christmas, and I want to wish you a Happy New Year as well. As of recording this episode, it's December 29th, and there's only a few days left of 2024. And with this recording, it's going to mark the final episode for this year. And guys, we've hit it. After reviving the show this year, very poetically, we are at 100 episodes. This is going to be the 100th Tales of Music and Film podcast recording, and a new milestone has been reached. And I am very excited for this recording. I thought we'd do something a little different, and I just want to start by saying thank you guys for helping me reach this point. To all of you who have been supporting the show for the last year, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. But for this episode, okay, I figured, how about we do something a little different to close out this year? And I was sitting back and realizing that there has been a good amount of movies coming out this year. This year, in my opinion, guys, 2024, if we're talking strictly movies, I think there was a lot of good gems that came out this year. And I had some really good theater experiences this year. Heck, I just watched 2 new movies yesterday and the day before, so I figured, how about we do a top 10 movies of 2024? And I got a good list here, and I am very excited to go through each of these films briefly, and what did I think of them, you know? So I figured that'd be a good way to close out this year. So here we are, guys, the 100th episode. And we're going to be doing a top 10 movies of 2024, so let's get into it. So at the number 10 spot, I wanted to start this list off with something, like, this is definitely the weakest film on the list, and it wasn't necessarily, I didn't think this movie was good overall, but it did have good elements in it. And what movie am I talking about? I am talking about Madam Web. Now, I know that this pick is going to shock a lot of you. Like, yeah, guys, trust me, I'm fully aware. Madam Web was extremely disappointing, and I was very confused the entire time of what the story was overall. I took my siblings to go see this back when it came out. I think it came out during the summer of this year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was earlier. I'm not sure. I lose track of time. But overall, the movie was not really good, but it did have some good elements in there. Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, and the other 2 actresses in this, like the 4 main girls that I'm talking about, like the scenes with them, I actually did really enjoy, because it really did give off, that this kind of like sisterhood kind of vibe, how they were looking out for one another and they were becoming friends, the team element, like there was some good scenes in here of that, but unfortunately I didn't think it was enough to really save this movie. I mean, I think it's really safe to say that's this small little universe that Sony has been desperately trying to build, it's dead in the water. I mean, with the Venom movies, this Kane the Conqueror that's getting ready to come out. I mean, I don't see this universe really going anywhere. I mean, I don't know like what their plan was exactly, but this universe is very, very confusing, and the films don't feel like they're connected in any kind of way. But at the very least, Madam Web did have some good elements in there. I did like the mystery of the main girl played by Dakota Johnson trying to figure out what happened to her mother, you know, and stuff like that. The mystery that there were some portions of that I did enjoy, but overall the movie needed a lot of work. But I wanted to start this list off with this movie because it had good elements in there with our main, you know, 4 characters. And I really did enjoy how they included Uncle Ben for some reason in this. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think in the movie, Dakota Johnson's friend is a very young Ben Parker, if I'm not mistaken. I only saw the movie once in theaters, but I really did enjoy that little tie-in to the Spider-Man universe that they did in this, although it was extremely confusing, to say the least, but the movie did have a lot of problems. Like, the villain's motive, I was really confused on. Like, him having these dreams of, like, him being killed by the main girls when they were older. Like, there was so much of this movie that was so confusing. I mean, it was the pacing that I really had a problem with, and it's just like, I was really confused on so many parts about like what was going on. Like the dream stuff of him like seeing the future, I don't think was very well explained. It's like, why is this happening? I mean, is he seeing like different outcomes of the future? I mean, it was just, there was a long list of problems with this movie, but like I said, there was a few good elements in there that I felt was worth addressing. So at number 10, we have Madam Web. Now, at the number 9 spot, we have Beetlejuice, a sequel that actually very surprised me, guys, because this movie was announced like 3 or 4 years ago, I think, and to tell you the truth, I was just kind of like, oh, Tim's just trying to, you know, grab one of his best movies and make a sequel, trying to, you know, get some fan service in there, trying to, you know, use nostalgia to, you know, to get people back to seeing his projects again. You know, like, that was the mindset that I had when I first heard when he announced that he was making a Beetlejuice sequel. I wasn't sure like what to think of it, because as a kid, I only watched the original Beetlejuice like a couple of times. I thought Beetlejuice was a good, okay movie when I was a kid. It did creep the heck out of me, but the sequel actually really surprised me. It did a really good job of bringing the story back to life and trying to make it work in today's world. You got to remember, the original came out back in 1988, you know, so it's been, you know, 37 years or something like that since the first movie. But I gotta tell you, the best part about this movie was Jenna Ortega, because, like, man, I'm telling you, she is knocking it out of the freaking park right now. I mean, this young lady, she's 22 years old, and she's already starred in so many amazing scary movies. I mean, like, as far as I'm concerned, like, Jenna Ortega is a scream queen. She was definitely one of the best parts about this movie. I just think her and Tim Burton work so well together because, you know, she played Wednesday, and they just wrapped season 2 as well. So Tim Burton is actually kind of making a small comeback with the Wednesday show and now this Beetlejuice sequel. But it was really awesome to see Winona Ryder back as the main girl, and she hasn't aged a day, in my opinion. Like, she is a great actress, and having her as the lead in this one was a lot of fun. And I was very happy that they got the mom actress back as well from the first movie. So Jenna, the mom, and Winona Ryder's character all together, like, they were a good trio for this movie. I really liked the chemistry between the three of them. That was the best part of the movie for me. And of course, Michael Keaton back as Beetlejuice, I thought was amazing. I mean, I think Keaton's a great actor. I mean, I grew up with him as a kid. Like, I watched the first 2 Tim Burton Batman movies all the time, so to see him back as Beetlejuice was definitely a very big saving grace. And I liked how the movie introduced like new elements about the afterlife and how it works. You know, it kind of expanded the lore on the whole afterlife thing. I was really bummed out that they couldn't find a way to bring back the main dead couple. Barbara and Adam Matland, I think is how you say their names. They were the best part about the first movie. Like, I really loved the family element of them with Winona Ryder's character, Linda. Like, the three of them were definitely the best part of the movie because they were the parents that Linda really needed, you know, because her real parents were not paying attention to her in any kind of way. They were both self-absorbed with their own, you know, projects, so they weren't, taking care of their own daughter. So, like, and we find out that Barbara and Adam wanted to have kids, and Linda kind of became like a surrogate daughter to them in a way, you know, and that was the best part about the movie. And I think that was like one of the main elements why I think the movie works so well even today. So not having that element in this movie was really kind of a letdown. I was really hoping the characters could have made an appearance in this because I like the sequel. Like Beetlejuice, the family element of Linda's character with her daughter Astrid, I really did enjoy that, but I just hate like how quickly Barbara and Adam were written off in the sequel. Like there was one mention of them where Linda says that she found a way for them to pass on and into the next realm, and then that's the end. Their names are never brought up ever again. I think the ending battle would have been a lot more amazing if like Barbara and Adam had found a way to show up at the end to help Linda. And they could have, like, found two actors that looked like them to be the young versions of themselves. Because obviously Jenna and Alec have both aged 30 years since the first movie. So they can't play the characters anymore because they're too old. They could have found two actors that looked like the young versions of them. And could have done it that way. I mean, I've seen sequels do this where they find young actors who look like, you know, the original actor who played the role to come back, you know, and play the young version of the character. You know, I've seen movies do that before, and I'm okay with it as long as the actor they pick looks and sounds like the original actor or actress, and I'm all for it, you know. But that's the one thing about the sequel that I wish they could have found a way to include was Barbara and Adam's characters, but other than that, I think Beetlejuice overall was a great sequel. It was great seeing Catherine back as Della. Like, she was amazing. She was another great part about this movie. Like I said, the chemistry between Linda and Della and Astrid, that was definitely the best part of the movie. And it was kind of cool to see Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice get more screen time in this. That was very good. Another complaint about this sequel overall was that we didn't really get that much information about Beetlejuice's wife. She was really kind of like pushed to the side, you know. Dolores, I think is how you say her name, and she was played by Monica Bellucci, I think is how you say her name. Sorry if I butchered her name, but she's a very famous actress. But I thought Beetlejuice's wife was a nice addition to the movie. My problem is we didn't see her very much in this, you know? Like, the minute she shows up at the wedding, she gets taken care of, like, pretty darn quick. And then, like, I remember watching that, and I'm like, okay, what was the point of her being in this? You know, I thought she was going to serve a bigger role, you know? But other than that, I think overall this was a great sequel. It expanded the lore, and it was cool seeing everybody come back. So I definitely had to add Beetlejuice to my top 10 movies of this year. So in the number 8 spot, we have a movie that I literally just watched last night with my best friend Jonathan and my buddy Woody and my cousin Abby. The four of us went to Springfield to an AMC theater to go see it literally last night, and the movie I'm talking about is Nosferatu, the fourth movie by Robert Edgar, who is famous for his previous 3 movies, which was The Witch, Lighthouse, and The Northman. I got to see Northman in theaters with my college roommate Aiden, who has been on the show many times in the past during my recordings at Eastern University. Aiden is a huge Robert Edgar fan, so when Northman came out in theaters, it came out during our senior year in college, during my senior year in college. So he took me to the Mattoon AMC theater to go check it out, and I really did enjoy this movie. I mean, of course, you have me watch The Witch and Lighthouse to get ready for Northman, and all three of those movies really did blow me away with how, like, with just the quality of it, you know? Like, Robert Edgar, to me, the guy's kind of like John Carpenter if he had a bigger budget, if that makes sense. Like, Robert is really putting his name out there, and he hasn't done one bad movie yet. And Nosferatu, in my opinion, could be his best movie yet. So, my best friend Jonathan kind of gave me a quick little rundown about Nosferatu. So, the original version came out way back in like the early 20s. It was a silent movie. And, the movie got into trouble because it was basically a ripoff of the American movie Dracula. It was basically a copy-paste kind of thing. Like they stole a lot of scenes directly from, the original Dracula. So the movie got into a lot of copyright issues, and it ended up being the only movie that its film company made because it lost a lot of money from all the lawsuits. But as the decades went by, people realized like how big this movie was. I mean, even today, the original Nosferatu is considered to be one of the greatest horror silent movies ever made. And I've seen like screenshots and tiny little sequences from it, and dude, I gotta tell you, it creeps the heck out of me. That movie is over 100 years old and it's still creepy. But I gotta tell you, man, Robert Edgar did an amazing job adapting this story for the modern audience. Like, oh my gosh, this movie's quality is unmatched. Like, it was creepy all the way through. Like, I gotta tell you guys, I was uncomfortable throughout most of the movie. And I'm telling you, man, that's the key word. It's uncomfortable. Like, every movie, every Robert Edgar film, there's never really a point where I can relax and chill out. Like, I'm always, like, tossing and turning in my seat every time I watch one of his movies because of how uncomfortable they are. With each movie he does, it's like the further you get into it, the more insane and chaotic it gets, you know? I keep thinking there's no way he's going to be able to top the previous film, and he keeps finding ways to make each movie better. You know, I don't know how he does it, but man, Nosferatu was amazing. It had a stacked grand cast for this movie. Everybody, like, there was not one bad performance in this movie, guys. Like, every person who starred in this, like, acted their hearts out in this. When you have Bill Skarsgård, you have William Dafoe, Emma Corrin, Lily Rose Depp, you have Nicholas Hoult. I'm a big fan of Nicholas. I really did enjoy him in the movie Renfield. Like, I think he did a great job in that movie. And I really did enjoy him playing Beast, and when he played young Beast in the X-Men movies. And then we have Aaron Taylor Johnson. Like, he was great in this movie. Then we have Ralph Ensign, I think is how you say his name. He was in The Witch. He had a cameo in Northman, and then he was in this movie as well. So everybody did a grand job in this. Like, William Dafoe was definitely one of the highlights for this movie. Like, guys, I remember me and Jonathan were talking about this during the car ride home. Like, William Dafoe, he's always the best part about any movie that he's in. I mean, this guy has never done one bad performance, I don't think, in his life. He is just a great actor. He will always be Green Goblin to me. But, man, he is amazing. Like, if you haven't seen him in The Lighthouse, like, you should definitely go watch that. He also had a cameo in Northman, so it seems that Robert Edgar likes to reuse some actors, kind of like how Quentin Tarantino does as well. But, man, this cast, everybody in this did such an amazing job. And this movie was definitely one of the best films of 2024. Like, I was genuinely blown away with just the quality of this movie, and I want to go see it again. So, guys, if you haven't seen Nosferatu yet, It's a fantastic movie. It was crazy, man. There were some scenes in that movie where I was I was grinding my teeth with just how with how uncomfortable I was getting during some of its sequences. But man, what a masterpiece it is. So yeah, Nosferatu, great movie. Definitely go check it out. Now in the number 7 spot, we have a movie that I had no interest. I wasn't interested in seeing this at all, but the movie is The Wild Robot. It had hit theaters earlier this year, and I had no interest in it whatsoever. So for any of you who don't know, I am a substitute teacher in a couple of districts, including my hometown, and during the last week of school before Christmas break started, the school that I was working at in my hometown took all the second and first graders, I believe. We all went to my town's theater and they played The Wild Robot in the theater, and I got to go with everybody to go see it in our town theater. Someone brought it on DVD and then they played it on the screen. And guys, I am telling you, for a kids movie, this movie was extremely deep with the life messages. Like guys, I'm telling you, there were some parts in Wild Robot I genuinely started tearing up with how beautiful the messages were in this about, finding your purpose, finding your friends, coming together, settling your stupid differences, and then coming together as one to make friends and help each other out, It may sound corny and cheesy, but man, the life lessons in this movie really got to me. How some things happen, for a reason. How you try to make things right from a mistake you made or something. It's just, wow. This movie got extremely deep, and I was genuinely blown away with some of the things the movie was allowed to talk about for a kid's movie, And it was great. When the credits started rolling, I was just like, wow, that was a good movie. Like, again, I had no interest in seeing this at all. I thought it looked really silly. But apparently, it's a book. So the kids got to read the book first in school as an assignment. Then they got to go see the movie. And guys, I'm telling you, if any of you are parents listening to this, definitely have your kids watch The Wild Robot. It's a great movie. It's full of so many important life lessons that children need to learn as soon as possible. So yeah, Wild Robot, great movie. And there was just some scenes in there that I just genuinely enjoyed about how all the animal characters came together to help each other out when this giant snowstorm hit the island they were staying on, and they rescued everybody, they settled their differences, and they helped keep each other alive. It was just wow, man. Just wow. What a movie. So yeah, Wild Robot, one of the best movies of this year. If you haven't shown your children it, definitely show it to them. So as we continue on the list, we're going to be going to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire in the number 6 spot. Now guys, it goes without saying, I am a huge Ghostbusters fan. I love the Ghostbusters movies, and I am so happy that I got to see 2 new Ghostbuster movies in theaters. Afterlife and Frozen Empire were both amazing theater experiences that I will never forget for the rest of my life. I grew up watching the first 2 Ghostbuster films when I was a kid. This franchise means a lot to me. And when I covered Ghostbusters 2, I really made that as clear as I possibly could that someday I want to drive an Ecto-1. And I want to get me my own Ghostbusters jumpsuit and proton pack. I want to do that someday so bad. But even though Frozen Empire did get a lot of mixed reviews, I genuinely enjoyed this movie. Getting to see the Ghostbusters firehouse again in New York City, seeing the business up and running again, seeing Ecto-1 being fixed up and looking shiny, brand new, Just seeing the Ecto 1 driving through the streets of New York with the siren blaring, that made the movie for me right then and there. I loved the opening sequence of Phoebe and the rest of her family, being a busting ghosts, keeping the family business going. It was just, it was awesome. Then getting to see all the OG characters come back as well, it was just, it was everything that I wanted. Like after Afterlife was over, I was really, really hoping that we get a sequel of the Ghostbusters reopening up the business, and sure enough, we got it, and it was marvelous. I loved the villain in this, and I loved the snow and ice aspect. It was so brilliantly well done. I loved all the new contraptions that were built for this movie. I loved the growth of the characters. I liked how they gave Winston a bigger role in the sequels because they're learning from the mistakes of the first two movies. And just seeing Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Annie Potts being back together again just made my 80s heart just explode, and just seeing them interact together and then seeing the business just up and running again was really just the best part of this movie. I mean, the cast in this was just awesome. It was really awesome seeing William Atherton come back as Walter Peck. I never knew I needed to see him back on screen again, but just because we haven't seen him in a Ghostbusters movie since the original, and that was 40 years ago. So to see him back just made me super, super happy. And I remember when I talked about this movie, I went into more detail about this movie if you guys want to check out that recording. But, I mean, the only complaints I really had with this was just kind of like, I wish the friendship between Phoebe and Melody had been done better. Like, I feel like their friendship could have been expanded just a little further. I feel like we didn't get enough. And I wish that they hadn't cut so many... Apparently, there was a lot of good scenes in this movie that were cut, some that featured Bill Murray's Peter Venkman. I was kind of like, why would you cut that? I mean, I watched one of these deleted scenes that featured Peter and Mr. Grubertson in front of the containment unit talking about how bad things are getting, and I really enjoyed that scene a lot. I'm pretty sure they even used that as like a teaser for the movie, and I'm just kind of like, why would you cut that? I feel like anything that features the original Ghostbusters should be kept in. That should be a default rule, But yeah, other than Phoebe and Melody's friendship not being expanded more, and the deleted scenes, and one more thing that I wish the movie had done was expand the story a little more. I mean, Egon was mentioned like maybe one or two times, and that was it, And I was a little disappointed because I was really hoping in this sequel we were going to learn, okay, who is Callie's mother? We never find out. It's like, who did Egon have his daughter with? I mean, we never know. I mean, a lot of fans were speculating that it was, that it was Janine, but we all know that's not true at all. So it's like, who was Egon with? Who he had his daughter Callie with? I mean, we don't know. We don't get any more backstory about why the Ghostbusters team, separated after Ghostbusters, after the video game, which takes place in '91. We don't learn about, okay, like, why did the team disband, and why didn't we get any more information about what led to the business being closed down? I feel like there should have been more explanation, But other than those three things, I thought that Frozen Empire was an amazing Ghostbusters sequel. It did get a lot of mixed reviews from people, and I saw a good amount of people making very negative reviews about it on YouTube, which I don't think the film deserved in any kind of way. I think Frozen Empire was great, and I'm very excited to see what direction the franchise is going to go from this point going forward. I think if they are going to do another one at some point, I think they will. Because, I mean, this and Afterlife both made a good amount of money. I do want them to kind of like go back to the roots of the first movie. Like, I would love it in the next sequel. We could maybe like do this thing where like Phoebe, Trevor, and Podcast and Lucky. I would like it if they become like the next like big team, like the four of them, because they're the kid actor, like they're the kid characters of the story. I was hoping in Frozen Empire we get that. Maybe in the next sequel we can, of the four of them becoming like the next new team, and then they just kind of like go around the city completing jobs. Like if we just get a few scenes of them, doing that, like maybe they go into like a giant hotel or something, kind of like reminiscent of the original movie. If we can just get some more stuff like that in the next sequel, I think that'd be awesome. Maybe some scenes like that could even feature some of the OG Ghostbusters, showing them, okay, this is how you get the job done or something, But other than that, I loved Frozen Empire, and as far as I'm concerned, it was one of the best movies of 2024. Now, in the number 5 spot, I put A Complete Unknown, a movie that I just watched a couple of days ago, and I actually really enjoyed this. So, A Complete Unknown is a Bob Dylan biopic that was directed by James Mangold, the same director who did I Walk the Line, which was the Johnny Cash biopic back in 2005. And I've listened to some of Bob Dylan's music as a teenager, but I wasn't like, a big fan of him or anything. I mean, I enjoy some of his early work, like Times A Changin' is probably my favorite song by him, but what really got me interested in Bob Dylan was when he was a member of the Traveling Wilburys, which was a supergroup from 1988 that did 2 records together that featured Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Roy Orbison, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne. It's said to be one of the biggest supergroups of all time, and their music that they wrote together was absolute magic. So that was what really got me interested in Bob Dylan. But this biopic by James Mangold goes into the very early 60s of when Bob first got to the big city and started recording his first few records. The movie goes into really how he got started, where some of the ideas for some of his early songs came from, his very complicated love life, and I really did enjoy the parts in this movie where it kind of goes into this stupid controversy that happened where, you see, in the early 60s, in 61, 62, when Bob started, it was just him. He didn't have a band or anything. It was just him with his acoustic guitar singing like folktale songs, and that's what got him really popular. Then cut to 4 years later, at 65, he decided to change things up. He got himself a full functioning band, and he went electric. And of course, as you are aware, I'm sure many of you will know that a good amount of his fan base got really, really angry that he wasn't writing his normal folk songs. Like, he decided to change his sound. He went electric. And he got in a lot of hot water for that for some stupid reason, because universe forbid young artists or any band tries to do something different instead of doing the same thing over and over again. Like, some musicians don't like to do that. Like, there comes a point in a musician's or a band's career where they want to change things up and do something new. I mean, they don't want to do the same thing over and over again. Not all of them, anyway. So I don't understand like why people weren't like more open to change. Like, there was a scene in A Complete Unknown near the end where Bob and his band were booked to play this festival, and he goes up on stage and everybody is so excited to see him play. They're thinking that he's gonna play all of his classics, and he doesn't do that at all. He plays an entire new set list of all these newer songs that he wrote that nobody really liked. Then the entire crowd just started booing him and throwing stuff on stage, and it was ridiculous. I don't know. Now, you have to take biopics with a grain of salt, because with Hollywood, I mean, we all know this. They play with history all the time. Like, my number rule of thumb is don't learn history by watching Hollywood movies. Don't do that. They take creative liberties all the time. In most cases, unfortunately, Hollywood doesn't care about the real life history it's portraying. It just wants you, the audience, to be entertained, and they will do whatever they have to make the movie good, even if it involves changing the history of what really went down in the story that it's basing its movie off of. So you have to take movies like this with a grain of salt. So again, I don't know how accurate this movie is to the real thing, but I do know that a lot of the fans got really angry that he changed his sound and started playing electric guitar. Now, I don't understand what all the fuss is about. I've heard some of his mid-60s work when he went electric, and it sounded pretty darn good. I mean, I would listen to it right now, so I don't understand why there was such a cry from the fans about this. But this movie was of amazing quality. I think everybody involved in this did an absolute great job. I gotta give a big round of applause to Timothy Chalamet, I think is how you say his name. He is a big upcoming actor. I mean, the guy's doing pretty well for himself. I mean, he's 29 years old. He was in the Wonka movie last year. He did the Dune movies, Call Me by Your Name, A Complete Unknown. He was in Little Woman. He was in Interstellar, Bones and all. I've never heard of that one, but he's really going up in the world. I saw him for the first time in the movie Lady Bird from 2017. He was pretty good in that. So the guy's really moving up in the world, and man, I gotta tell you, he did an amazing job portraying a young Bob Dylan. I mean, he had Bob's mannerisms, the accent, the singing voice. I mean, as far as I know, he sang and played guitar in real time when they were making this movie, just like Joaquin Phoenix did in the Johnny Cash biopic. And Timothy knocked it out of the freaking park in this. I mean, he was great. He's a great actor. And there are some parts in this movie I really did feel like if you'd closed your eyes, you would have thought it was really Bob Dylan, So yeah, everybody involved in this did a great job. I think James Mangold did a good job directing this movie. I think he didn't do a really good job when he did Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but I really did enjoy I Walked the Line. And I also think James Mangold did a damn good job with the movie Logan back in 2017. So I think James is a good director. I just think there's been some instances where I don't think he did his best. Like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was slightly disappointing to me in some areas, but I think he redeemed himself with A Complete Unknown. I think it was a great movie. It's in theaters right now, guys. So if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you go check out A Complete Unknown. Now, in the number 4 spot, we have, in my opinion, one of my favorite movies that came out this year. If I had to do a top 5, guys, it's on here, obviously. In the number 4 spot, we have Alien Romulus. Now, guys, I'm telling you, this movie was a huge surprise. This is an Alien movie that the franchise has been needing for almost 40 years. I've covered Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3 on the podcast, and you know that as far as I'm concerned, the Alien story ended after Aliens. Alien 3 was a complete disaster, in my opinion. If you guys want to check out my recording for that, you can definitely go check it out. It's a great recording. I really ripped that movie apart when I covered it on the show. It was funny. But I've also covered Alien and Aliens, and the first 2 Alien films, they are some of my favorite movies of all time. And after Aliens in 1986, this poor franchise just kind of went down the drain. I mean, Alien 3 was a very disappointing end to the story, and then we have Resurrection, a movie that I don't care how much you would pay me, I respect my brain too much to put it through that horrible experience. I cannot bring myself to watch Resurrection. I can't do it. It just looks so bad. And And then you have Ridley Scott's prequel movies, which, guys, I don't want to sound negative, but I did not enjoy Ridley's prequel films at all. Prometheus and Alien Covenant were both extremely forgetful and extremely disappointing. And I was really angry that the Neil Blomkamp Alien 5 story that I talked about in my canceled movies recording, that movie was going to give Ripley a proper ending. And then what happens? That movie got canceled in favor of Ridley Scott's Alien Covenant, and look where that got us. That movie was terrible. Like, I'm sorry, but Prometheus and Covenant were extremely disappointing, and I don't understand like what Ridley Scott was trying to do with those movies. They were bad. And I never thought we would ever get a good Alien movie ever again. And then we get Alien Romulus, and it single-handedly brought this franchise back to life in a way I didn't think was possible, because the last time this franchise had anything good was when the Alien Isolation game came out back in 2014. Like, that video game and the first two movies, they're the only things that are canon as far as I'm concerned. And holy cow, guys, this movie was incredible. I loved the young cast in this. Like, everybody in this knocked it out of the freaking park with their performances. This is exactly the movie that this franchise needed desperately. And I think the director for this, Fede Alvarez, I think say his name. Turns out he is a huge Alien Isolation fan, and he took a lot from the video game, and I am so glad that he did. That game was amazing. There are so many scenes in Alien Romulus that look like it was straight out of the video game, with the abandoned space station that our main cast docks to go steal some stuff. The hallways look like it's straight off of the Celestopol station from the video game. And I love how this movie brought in new elements of the alien creatures, how if you change the temperature in a room, it kind of camouflages you from the face huggers. I thought that was cool. One of my favorite scenes in this movie was when some of our characters had to sneak through a hallway that was full of face huggers, but they turned the temp down in the room to kind of camouflage their body heat so they could walk through the hallway, very quietly. And I remember seeing this in theaters, guys. You could hear a pin drop. Like, nobody was breathing, in my opinion, during this sequence. It was intense. And my gosh, there were so many scenes in this where I was gripping my chair. And do I even need to talk about the ending battle with the Offspring creature? Like, dude, guys, that shot of when we see the Offspring creature just on its hands and knees in that hallway, just staring at you with those black eyes, that was the stuff of pure nightmares. Like, that was insane. I didn't think that there would be a way for them to introduce a creature more creepy than the xenomorph aliens, but they found a way. And that ending battle with that creature was just insane. And I loved the main girl in this. She was really giving off, like a young Ripley. Like, this franchise was desperately needing a new good female lead. And the main girl in this, Rain, she was perfect. Callie Spinay, I think you say her name. Sorry if I butchered it. She was amazing in this. Like, if I ever got to meet her, I would tell her, like, hey, you were amazing in this. She's really moving up in the world. I forgot that she was in Pacific Rim Uprising. She was in Civil War. And she was in the Priscilla movie as well. So she's really moving up in the world in her Hollywood career. We got Alien Romulus was a great movie. And just wow, it was something this franchise was really needing, and we do know 100% that this movie is getting a sequel, which I cannot wait to see. And thanks to the success of this movie, we are getting an Alien Isolation sequel. It was announced this year. So this movie single-handedly brought this franchise back to life. And oh my gosh, man, just thank you to all the cast and crew for giving us an Alien film that I have been waiting to see since I was a teenager. I never thought we would see anything remotely close to this ever again. So guys, if you haven't seen Alien Romulus yet, go watch it. It's a mix of the first two movies and the video game all in one, and it was breathtaking. Great movie. So now we're going to be getting into the top 3 movies for me of 2024. And in the number 3 spot, we have a movie, guys, that I am genuinely surprised was created and that it was good as it was, and that was Twisters. Now guys, I gotta tell you, I thought my initial first thoughts when Twisters was announced was, really, Hollywood? Are you really that desperate for ideas? You're going to make a sequel to a movie that came out, 25 years ago? I mean, when the movie was first announced, I think way back in like 2021, 2022 or something, a really good friend of mine, Justice, great friend of mine, she was the one who told me about the announcement of a Twister sequel. I'm just kind of like, really? Do we really need that? I mean, like, Bill Paxton's gone. Like, and there was another actor from Twister that passed away as well. His name escapes me at the moment, but I'm like, how are they going to make a Twister sequel without Bill Paxton? I mean, him and Helen Hunt, they were the best parts about the original Twister movie. I mean, it was one of the best movies from the 90s. Twister is one of my favorite movies, so I was just kind of like, we don't need a sequel. But then I decided to give it a chance, and me and my whole family went to the theater to go see this. And dude, when the credits for this were rolling, I was just in awe. Like, I couldn't believe how good of a movie this was, and it did some very good things that made it really stand out. I think one of the main things that really helped this movie is that it was really its own movie. There is really no connection to this and the original film. Other than at the beginning of the movie, there's a callback. The young team that gets introduced at the beginning of this movie, they have a Dorothy device, and I wish the movie had gone into some detail on how they were able to get one of those, considering they were all used in the first Twister movie. But nonetheless, it was cool getting to see a Dorothy device again, and that was really the only callback to the original movie. The only complaint I had with this is that I wish the main girl in this, I wish that later on in the film, when she goes to go visit her mom, so the main girl in this, her name is Kate, played by Daisy Edgar Jones. She plays Kate Carter, and when Kate goes to visit her mom Kathy about halfway through the movie, I wish that she was the daughter of Helen Hunt's character Joe. I think that would have been a nice little cameo from Helen Hunt, to have at least more of a tie-in to the original movie. I think that would have worked way better. But nonetheless, this movie was awesome. I like the idea of how Kate and the team that she's a part of later on in the movie, they have competition with this team of YouTubers who run a YouTube channel where they, quote, they're tornado wranglers. The main dude, Tyler Owens, is played by Glenn Powell, I think is how you say his name. He's making quite the name for himself. He was in a movie with Sydney Sweeney last year called Anyone But You. He was in a movie called Hitman. And the movie that introduced me to him was he played a very annoying pilot in Top Gun Maverick. And he was also in the movie Hidden Figures. He was one of the astronauts. So yeah, he's really starting to move up in the world. And I loved the enemies turned lovers aspect of the story between Tyler and Kate. I thought that was done extremely well. They had great chemistry on screen together, and I really did enjoy Tyler's team of YouTubers, because the movie was trying to show the message of, like, Tyler's team, none of them went to college and got college degrees like Kate. You know, like, they know their craft and they know what they're doing. They just didn't get a college degree. I kind of like that message that this movie was trying to tell young people. It's like, you don't have to go to college to find your dream job. Like, not necessarily, you know? So I thought that was a nice, good message to send to young people. And all the disaster aspects of the movie were just as good as the original. I love the new invention this movie introduces of how Tyler's driving this really, this big red truck of his that has this really cool device where it has spikes. He presses a button and the spikes dig themselves into the ground, and it locks the truck in place so that the tornado can't pick it up if it gets near if the truck gets near a twister, you know. And I love the aspect of them trying to try out this new device that Kate invented, where she's trying to kill a tornado, basically, with these tubs of sand that gets sent into the tornado. It's supposed to, like, dry it out of all its moisture, and it makes it disappear. You know, I thought that was a cool little new invention that this team was trying to test. You know, I thought that was really cool. And yeah, this movie genuinely surprised me. Like I said, when this was first announced, I thought it was the dumbest idea in the entire world. But it ended up being a movie that genuinely really surprised me this year, and I'm glad that I went to go see this. I think the only other complaint I had was the soundtrack. I am not a country music fan in any kind of way, so I was slightly annoyed that they used country music throughout the entire thing. I mean, like, my gosh, man, in the original Twister, I mean, we had Van Halen shredding chords on the song Humans Being. I mean, like, that song was absolutely amazing. I really wish this movie had used that song in its soundtrack in some ways, you know? And I was really hoping the movie would also reuse some of the orchestra stuff from the original Twister, but unfortunately not. But nonetheless, this movie was breathtakingly amazing to watch on screen. It had so many amazing action sequences that were just as good as the original. The first movie will always be superior, but this movie stood on its own 2 feet, and it didn't rely on nostalgia to bring in audiences. It brought in its own aspects, and it was amazing. Great, great movie. And it wasn't like a direct sequel. It was just a movie set in the same universe. And I think that's what really saved it, is that it was its own thing. It wasn't really connected to the original. And that, I think, was what really saved it. So yeah, everybody involved in making this, you guys all did an amazing job with Twisters. So now we're getting into our last 2 films, guys. At the number 2 spot, I had to put this movie, Dune Part 2. Now, guys, Dune Part 1, I really enjoyed when it hit theaters in 21. I loved it. It took me a while to like it because of how long it was, but I was desperately waiting for the sequel to Dune. And man, Dune Part 2 whooped the first one's butt by miles, okay? Dune Part 2 is one of the most satisfying sequels that I have ever seen in my life. Guys, I'm telling you right now, revenge has never been so much better than how it is portrayed in this movie. Never have I ever rooted for someone to get payback on someone in my life. My gosh, man, this movie was amazing. Yeah, it was. It's a long movie. There is a lot of lore in this universe that you have to keep in mind when watching it, but if you can get past those two aspects, oh my gosh, this movie's amazing. I have it on Blu-ray. I've watched it a few times. It gets better with every watch. Just the story in this, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I'm just really sad that we have to wait, probably 2 or 3 years for the third and final installment to come out, because part 1 and part 2 were kind of filmed back to back, and I think that really wore out the director and everybody involved. So it is confirmed they're gonna wait like a couple of years before they do the third and final installment, which sucks, but I'm okay. It'll be worth the wait. I can't wait to see how they're gonna wrap up this Dune story. But man, part 2 was awesome. I mean, there's just nothing else I can really say about it that's going to do it justice. It's one of those movies, you need to go see it for yourself. But the best part of this movie for me was the revenge aspect of, of Paul, his mom, and their friend played by, let's see here. Oh yeah, Gunry, played by Josh Brolin. The three of them finding each other and then getting revenge on the people who destroyed and who destroyed Paul's family in the Atreides group in the first movie. Like, I was rooting for Paul and the others every step of the way. I wanted him to succeed so bad. That ending battle where they attack, the Emperor and his army was unfreaking real, guys. It was incredible. Again, I've never rooted for someone to get payback so much. And that final knife battle between Paul and Austin Butler's character, Fadid, I think is how you say his name. Man, that was choreographed extremely well. And I gotta give a shout out to the cast, man. I mean, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, I think you say her name, Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Stellan Skarsgård, Christopher Walken, Dave Bautista, Josh Brolin. I mean, everybody in this was amazing. Great cast. They all knocked it out of the park with their performances. Timothy as Paul Atreides, he was amazing in this. I loved the love story between Paul and Shanae, played by Zendaya. I loved their love story. It was sad the way it ended in the story, but man, they had great chemistry on screen together. And just, this movie was great. And part 1 and part 2, both endings, I want to see the next installment. Like, that's how you know you did your sequel right. Where it ends where your audience is wanting more, So I am so excited to see the third installment for this when it comes out. If you haven't seen Dune Part 2 or 1 yet, do yourself a favor and go watch these. They are very long, but they're worth the watch, believe me. These movies tell great stories. Like, these movies, in my opinion, they are the Lord of the Rings movies of this generation, and I really mean that. And that is some very high praise. So believe me when I say these movies are amazing. So now we are getting to the final movie, guys. And what movie could I put in my number 1 spot? When I was making this list, I mean, there was no question that this movie was going to be number 1, and that is Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, guys, this movie, I don't even know where to start with Deadpool and Wolverine, other than the fact this movie gave everybody what they have been waiting 20 years to see. I mean, where do we start? The fact that we finally got to see Hugh freaking Jackman wear the classic Wolverine costume after waiting 24 years since the first X-Men came out back in 2000. We finally got to see him wear that amazing yellow uniform. And this movie and we finally got to see Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds portray Wolverine and Deadpool the right way, because they tried putting them together in Wolverine Origins and it was an absolute mess. And then finally, like 15 years after that movie, we finally got their comic book accurate portrayals, and this movie was everything that I wanted and more. What really surprised me about this movie, this movie was a love letter to close out the Fox era of superhero movies. Guys, I gotta tell you, that after credits scene of all that behind the scenes footage of all the actors making all those superhero movies from the early 2000s that I grew up watching that were made by Fox, it kind of made a tear come out of my eye. It almost did. You know, just that whole sequence, just paying homage to all those projects. It was amazing. And this movie is what Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness should have been. Like, guys, this movie is full of so many cameos, some that just surprised me. Like, there are some actors who showed up in this that I had no way of knowing that they were going to be in this. I mean, Wesley Snipes coming back to play Blade. I mean, I was just like, what? What is he doing here? You know, like, I couldn't believe it. And then you have Jennifer Gardner, of all people, coming back to reprise Elektra, because she played that character twice from that 2003 Daredevil movie, and then there was a sequel to it called Elektra that sadly, I from what I've heard, that movie was terrible. And I like how the movie kind of addresses how, like, the world's basically forgotten about that Daredevil movie and that Elektra movie. I like how the movie kind of poked fun at that. But dude, like, those two, and then you have what's her name, Daphne Keane, reprising her role as Laura from Logan, which was the greatest thing about this movie. Guys, after Logan, I can't tell you how badly I wanted a sequel of Daphne becoming the next Wolverine. When everybody was talking about how, like, who should replace Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, I'm like, Daphne Keane! Obviously, she should be the next one. She's perfect. Replace Hugh with her. But, oh man, seeing her back as Laura, oh my gosh, man, that was amazing. That whole campfire scene of her talking with that Logan variant, it was just, that is what I've been waiting, since 2017 to see, and it was everything that I wanted. And Chris Evans showing up in this as Johnny Storm, I just could not believe that this is happening. I mean, that's just, again, the cameos in this, I just could not believe. Like, the two early 2000s Fantastic Four films, I watched them a couple of times now as a kid. I thought they were alright, but I think Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, I think, was definitely the best part of those movies. I mean, like, I think Chris Evans had that character really understood. Like, he was great. I think he always did. He gave the best performance, I think, out of the four actors. And it was really nice that we got, all the actors from the previous two films back. Like, we had Blind Al back. We had Teenage Warhead came back. Vanessa was back. They got some other actors from the first movies back. I was really sad that they couldn't get Josh Brolin back as Cable. I was sad they couldn't have him be at that party sequence, and I was sad they couldn't get Domino back as well. And I was a little confused how Rusty Collins, who was that boy with the fire powers from Deadpool 2, I thought it was kind of funny how they just, like, completely forgot about him in Deadpool and Wolverine. There's no mention of him at all. We don't know what happened to him, but oh well. I mean, I don't think it harmed the film in any kind of way. I guess the only complaint that I had with Deadpool and Wolverine was that I wish that that all of his friends had a bigger part in this, Like, we don't see them very much. I mean, we see Vanessa, Teenage Warhead, and Colossus, and Peter. We see them at the beginning during that party they're having for Wade because it's his birthday. But that's the only time we see them. We see them again at the very end of the movie where they're having a party that included Wolverine and Laura. But, I mean, that was it. I was really wishing that they'd had a bigger part in this because one of my favorite, dynamics about the first two Deadpool movies was the interactions between Deadpool and Colossus. I thought that they were extremely funny. And Teenage Warhead, the interactions between her and Deadpool I thought was really funny as well. So I was hoping they could have had a bigger part in this, but I'm glad that they got them back, even if it was only for a little bit. But this movie did such an amazing job of closing out the Fox era of X-Men movies and all the other hero movies. And this movie just single-handedly gave me everything that I've been waiting for a long time. I mean, if Deadpool and Wolverine's story ends right here, guys, I'm telling you, I'm okay with that. I don't need anything else. I got to see Deadpool and Wolverine together, finally. We got to see Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine in the classic costume. We got to see Wolverine and Laura reunite one more time. We actually finally got a multiverse story done right after Marvel has attempted, I don't know how many times, they failed miserably over and over again. And I like how this movie kind of pokes fun at that, This movie is the MCU has been desperately been needing a hit because it just keeps burying itself in the ground with all these sequels. They care more about setting up its next sequel instead of being a good movie first, All they care about is making the next sequel and not making a good film first. And it seems that Disney and Marvel are more focused on narratives and messages instead of, making a good movie for everyone to love. So this movie was desperately needed, and it was a huge success, to say the least. And I think Disney should use this as their sign. You see, Marvel, Disney, see what happens when you actually give the fans what they want. Your movie does well. Oh my gosh, who would have thought, But now reports are starting to come out that there's a potential planning for a Wolverine versus Hulk movie. And I would be on board for that, but I'm skeptical about it right now. But nonetheless, Deadpool and Wolverine, it was the best movie of 2024. And I'm so happy this movie gave all of us fans what we have been waiting for 2 decades. So thank you to Ryan Reynolds and the director for this, for sticking, Sean Levy, the director. Sean and Ryan are the 2 big reasons this movie happened and why it was as good as it did. They stood their ground against the execs, saying, you either let us make this movie our way, or we're not going to make it at all. They stood their ground, and they put their foot down, saying, this is how we want it, this is how we're going to do it. So, I'm so happy that this movie was allowed to be what they envisioned it to be. And I'm so happy that Hugh came out of retirement to play him just one more time. And now that this movie is over, it's just kind of like, I think, Hugh, if you want to retire now permanently, go for it, man. You gave us everything we wanted. You've been playing this character for almost a quarter of a century. So if you want to hang out the claws now, brother, you have earned it and more. So thank you for coming out of retirement. Oh my gosh. It's amazing. So that's it, guys. That is the top 10 movies of 2024. This year overall, it was just one of the best years of my life. And this year, in my opinion, was a very good year for movies. It's been a while since I've seen this many good movies come out in a single year. So I'm very happy that there was a lot of good gems that came out this year. And I'm very curious to see how the next couple of years are going to be for movies. But This year has been amazing, and again, I can't say it enough. Like, it's been 2024 has been a magnificent year for me, and I hope it's been a great year for you as well. It wasn't perfect for me, nothing ever is. There were a lot of ups and downs, this year, but 2024 has been a great year, and one of the best things about this year was that I got to pick up my show, get it up and running again, and I got to do all these awesome recordings to share with all you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this journey that I've taken you guys on, and I hope you learned something cool, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for supporting my show for this last year. I can't believe that we are at, 100 episodes. It feels like yesterday I was celebrating 50 episodes back at Eastern University when I was in college. So to be hitting 100 episodes, it's just a very mind-blowing, experience. And, just there's a few days left of this year, and I thought I would get one last accomplishment in before the year is over. So that's 100 episodes for the Tales of Music and Film podcast. I hope that you guys enjoyed this recording, and thank you again for all your amazing support. And like I always end these recordings, keep living life to the fullest, stay happy, stay positive, and keep living your life to the fullest. You only live once, so go out there, take risks, take opportunities, and see where it leads you. So I hope you guys had a magnificent year. Happy New Year to you. And until next time, my name is Christian Taylor, and you are listening to the Tales of Music and Film.